Start the chapter Indifference curve. Actually, this is not a chapter. This is another chapter of consumer behavior. Under the chapter of consumer behavior, there are two approaches. Ordinal utility approach is this. We have already done cardinal utility analysis, that is marginal utility analysis, and now it is ordinal utility analysis. This is about indifference curve. Now, why is it called ordinal utility analysis? The reason is, in case of utility, the modern economists have believed, their opinion is, utility cannot be measured cardinally. Rather, utility can be ranked, ordering or ranking of utility can be possible. And that is why we call it ordinal utility analysis. Now, first thing, what is an indifference curve? An indifference curve is the locus, the path traced out by a moving point. So an indifference curve is the locus of different combinations of two goods which can be purchased and consumed by the consumer with his given money income, and in which all the combinations give equal utility to the consumer. That is an indifference curve. I repeat, an indifference curve is the locus of different combinations of two goods which can be consumed by the consumer with his given money income, and in which all the combinations will give equal utility or satisfaction to the consumer. Now let's focus on how do we derive an indifference curve. How do we derive an indifference curve? You can see the table in which first column combinations, second column good X, third column good Y, and fourth column utility. Let us assume that a consumer with his given money income, he is consuming two goods, good X and good Y, commodity X and commodity Y. Now, one assumption is here. The assumption is the consumer will spend his entire money income on the two goods. Nothing will be saved. His entire money income will be spent on the two goods. Nothing will be saved. So, at first, initially, he spends his entire money income on good X and good Y. How? 1 unit of good X and 12 units of good Y. 1 unit of good X and 12 units of good Y. And by spending the entire money income on the two goods, he buys, he purchases, he consumes 1 unit of good X and 12 units of good Y. And from this combination A, this is combination A, he derives utility U bar. U bar is just an algebraic notation or representation of the utility, the total utility from this combination. In the next time period, maybe the next day, he has the same money income with him, and he decides to purchase and consume one more unit of good X, that is 2 units instead of 1 unit, 2 units instead of 1 unit. So one additional unit of good X. But see, he had spent the entire money income of the two goods when 1 unit of good X and 12 units of good Y were purchased and consumed. Then, now if he wants to purchase one additional unit of good X, he has to sacrifice an amount of good Y. See, the number of units of good Y decreases from 12 to 8. So how many units of good Y has he sacrificed? 12 to 8? 4. 4 units of good Y he has to give up, he has to sacrifice, he has to reduce when he is purchasing and consuming one additional unit of good X. And from this second combination, which is combination B, he also gets the same utility, equal utility, that is U bar. Now, in the next time period, again the consumer wants to purchase and consume one additional unit of good X. That is, how many units? 3 units. 3 units of good X he wants to purchase instead of 2. Again, one more unit. For that, again, he has to reduce, he has to give up, he has to sacrifice some amount of good Y. So it becomes 8 to 5, from 8 to 5. Then, how many units reduction he has to make? 3. From 8 to 5 means 3 units reduction. And in this third combination C, also the total utility is U bar, the same. In this way, again, in combination D, the next time period he purchases 4 units of good X, 4 units of good X, again 1 more unit, and for that he has to sacrifice some amount of good Y. So it becomes 5 to 3. From 5 to 3 it becomes. Then how many units of good Y sacrifice or reduction he makes? He has to reduce 2 units, 2 units of reduction. Okay. So this combination 4, 3, this is combination D. And at last, and here also in the combination D, the fourth combination, the total utility received is U bar. Now if we concentrate on the last combination, combination E, when again he purchases one additional unit of good X from 4 to 5, then he again has to sacrifice some amount of good Y. So it becomes 3, 2, from 3 to 2. That means how much reduction now? It's 1 unit. It's 1 unit only. So again from the last unit, last combination rather, that is combination E, how much total utility? U bar. Now one thing you notice, that in case of all the combinations, combination A, B, C, D, E, all the combinations, the total utility is all same. U bar remains the same. That means equal utility received. Okay. I hope this is clear. Now if you have understood this, if we plot these combinations 1, 12, 2, 8, 3, 5, 4, 3, 5, 2, if we plot these combinations in a graph, if we plot these combinations 1, 12, 2, 8, 3, 5, 4, 3 and 5, 2. If these combinations are plotted and they are named as A, B, C, D, E, the 5 combinations, then we get a curve like this, and this curve is called indifference curve. This curve is called indifference curve. Why is it named as indifference curve? Because all the combinations give equal utility to the consumer. A, B, C, D, E, all the combinations, or if any other point is also chosen, then that combination, that point also gives equal utility to the consumer. And so the consumer is indifferent amongst all these combinations. As the consumer remains indifferent, he is indifferent amongst all these combinations. That is why the name is given indifference curve, or another name is there. The other name for this curve is iso-utility curve. Iso-utility curve. Now why this name? Iso, this term, this word means equal. And as we find all equal utility, that means all the combinations give equal utility to the consumer. That is why this curve may be named as iso-utility curve. I hope this is clear. Now, the economists who made this theory, that means indifference curve theory, indifference curve analysis, they had made certain assumptions also. Now, before going into those assumptions, one thing you notice, the thing which I've already told, from 1 unit to 2 units, when the consumer purchases one additional unit, then he has to sacrifice, he has to reduce some amount of combination, a good Y. How much here? At first 4. 12 to 8, 4. Then from 2 to 3, how much unit sacrificed? 3. From 3 to 4, how much unit sacrificed? 5 to 3, that means 2. This amount of good Y, which is to be reduced or sacrificed, when one additional unit of good X has to be purchased or consumed, is to be consumed, then the amount of the other commodity, that is good Y, which is to be sacrificed or reduced, this is called MRS. MRS means marginal rate of substitution. Marginal rate of substitution. So marginal rate of substitution refers to the rate at which one good can be substituted for another. One good can be substituted for another, keeping the level of satisfaction unchanged. Keeping the level of satisfaction unchanged, the utility is unchanged. This is marginal rate of substitution. In another way, we can say marginal rate of substitution refers to the amount of one particular good which is to be sacrificed in order to consume one additional unit of the other commodity. Like here, From good X to good Y, when we are going, then amount of good Y sacrificed is 12 to 8, that is 4 units sacrificed. Then MRS is 4. Okay. Now let's come to the assumptions. The assumptions of indifference curve. While drawing the indifference curve, certain assumptions are made, and those assumptions are: number one, rationality. Rationality, rationality. This assumption implies that it is assumed every consumer is quite sensible, quite rational or logical. He or she knows which combination gives me more utility, better utility, which combination gives me less utility, which one to choose, which one not to choose. These the consumer knows. Number two, non-satiety, non-satiety, non-satiety. The word satiety comes from the word satiation, and satiation means completely satisfied or fully satisfied, saturated. Now, non-satiety means not completely satisfied, not fully satisfied. It is very true, it's very practical and true that in this world you can never find such a person who is fully satisfied. For everyone, always more is better. More is better. Never we find a person who is completely satisfied. The more he gets, the more satisfied he becomes. More is better. So this is non-satiety. Now number three. Third assumption is ordinality. I've already told that in this analysis, it is believed, it is followed here, that the utilities are ranked. Combination A greater than combination B means preferred to combination B. Preference, according to the preference, ranking can be done. First, second, third, fourth. This ranking can be done. So it is ordinal utility. Next, number four. Fourth assumption is transitivity. Now, what is transitivity? The rule of transitivity says, suppose if combination A is preferred to combination B and combination B is preferred to combination C, then combination A is preferred to combination C. Again, I repeat, if combination A is preferred to combination B and combination B is preferred to combination C, then combination A is preferred to combination C. This is the rule of transitivity. Now, the fifth assumption. The fifth assumption is consistency. Consistency means every consumer is assumed to be quite consistent. He will not deviate from his statement which he has said once, the decision that he has made already. Like if a consumer decides that A combination A is preferred to combination B for me, I prefer combination A to combination B, then he can never say again that no, combination B is preferred to combination A for me. He has to stick to the previously stated statement. That is why we say he has to be consistent. Now the last assumption, the sixth assumption, which is related to MRS. That is why I taught MRS. MRS, marginal rate of substitution. Then the last assumption is diminishing MRS. Diminishing MRS. Now it is assumed rather, that the MRS will be diminishing, like from 12 to 8, 4, 8 to 5, it's 3, 5 to 3, it's 2, and from 3 to 2, it's 1. The amount of reduction of good Y, that is the sacrifice, that is the MRS, is decreasing. 4, 3, 2, 1. So these are all the assumptions of indifference curve. On the basis of these assumptions, the indifference curve is made. The theory is based on these assumptions.